She laughed, then turned to look out of the window. The leaves of the small oak trees that Brother Maelgwyn planted to make a windbreak have turned brown early, and the woods in the coombe below us are thick with berries, both signs that a harsh winter is coming. Sagramore once told me there were places where winter never comes, and the sun shines warm all year. But maybe, like the existence of rabbits, that was another of his fanciful tales. I once hoped that the Christian heaven would be a warm place, but St. Sansom insists heaven must be cold, because hell is hot, and I suppose the saint is right. There is so little to look forward to. Igraine shivered and turned back towards me.
"No one ever made me a Lunacy Bower," she said wistfully.
"Of course they did," I said. "Every year you have one."
"But that's the Care's Bower. The slaves make it because they have to, and naturally I sit there, but it isn't the same as having your own young man make you a bower out of foxgloves and willow." "Was Merlin angry about you and Nimue making love?"
"I should never have confessed that to you," I said. "If he knew, he never said anything. It wouldn't have mattered to him. He was not jealous. Not like the rest of us. Not like Arthur. Not like me. How much of our earth has been wet by blood because of jealousy? And at the end of life, what does it all matter? We grow old, and the young look at us and can never see that once we made a kingdom ring for love." Igraine adopted her mischievous look.
"You say Gorfethid called Guinevere whore. Was she?"
"You should not use that word."
"All right. Was Guinevere what Gorfethid said she was, which I'm not allowed to say for fear of offending your innocent ears?"
"No," I said. "She was not."
"But was she faithful to Arthur?"
"Wait," I said. She stuck her tongue out at me.
"Did Lancelot become a Mithraist?"
she asked. "Wait and see," I insisted.
"I hate you."
"And I am your most worshipping servant, dear lady," I said. "But I am also tired, and this cold weather makes the ink clog. I shall write the rest of the story, I promise you."
"If Sansom lets you,"
Igraine said. "He will," I answered. "The saint is happier these days, thanks to our remaining novice, who is no longer a novice, but consecrated a priest and a monk, and already, Sansom insists, a saint like himself. Saint Tudwal, we must now call him. And the two saints share a cell and glorify God together. And the only thing I can find wrong with such a blessed partnership is that the holy Saint Tudwal, now 12 years old, is making yet another effort to learn how to read. He cannot speak this Saxon tongue, of course, but even so, I fear what he might decipher from these writings. But that fear must wait till Saint Tudwal masters his letters, if he ever does. And for the moment, if God wills it, and to satisfy the impatient curiosity of my most lovely queen, Igraine, I shall continue this tale of Arthur, my dear lost lord, my friend, my lord of war. I noticed nothing the next day. I stood with Galahad as an unwelcome guest of my enemy, Gorfethid, while Eorweth made the propitiation to the gods, and the druid could have been blowing dandelion seeds for all the note I took of the ceremonies. They killed a bull. They tied 3 prisoners to the 3 stakes, strangled them, then took the war's auguries by stabbing a 4th prisoner in the midriff. They sang the battle song of Maponos as they danced about the dead. And then the kings, princes, and chieftains dipped their spearheads in the dead men's blood, before licking the blood off the blades and smearing it on their cheeks. Galahad made the sign of the cross, while I dreamed of Cynwyn. She did not attend the ceremonies. No women did. The auguries, Galahad told me, were favourable to Gorfethid's cause, but I did not care. I was blissfully remembering that silver-light touch of Cynwyn's finger on my hand. Our horses, weapons, and shields were brought to us, and Gorfethid himself walked us to Caer Sous's gate. Keenaglas, his son, came also, and he might well have intended a courtesy by accompanying us, but Gorfethid had no such niceties in mind. "Tell your whore lover," the king said, his cheek still smeared with blood, "that war can be avoided by one thing only. Tell Arthur that if he presents himself in Loch Vale for my judgment and verdict, I shall consider the stain on my daughter's honour cleansed."
"I shall tell him, Lord King," Galahad answered.
"Is Arthur still beardless?" Gorfithid asked, making the question sound like an insult.
"He is, Lord King," Galahad said.
"Then I can't plait a prisoner's leash from his beard," Gorfithid growled. "So tell him to cut off his whore's red hair before he comes, and have it woven ready for his own leash."
Gorfethid clearly enjoyed demanding that humiliation of his enemies, though Prince Keenaglas's face betrayed an acute embarrassment for his father's crudeness.
"Tell him that, Galahad of Benwick," Gorfithid continued, "and tell him that if he obeys me, then his shaven whore can go free, so long as she leaves Britain."
"The Princess Guinevere can go free," Galahad restated the offer.
"The whore!"
Gorfethid shouted.
"I lay with her often enough so I should know. Tell Arthur that."
He spat the demand into Galahad's face.
"Tell him she came to my bed willingly, and to other beds too."
"I shall tell him," Galahad lied to stem the bitter words. "And what, Lord King," Galahad went on, "of Mordred?"
"Without Arthur," Gorfethid said, "Mordred will need a new protector. I shall take responsibility for Mordred's future. Now go."
We bowed, we mounted, and we rode away, and I looked back once in hope of seeing Kynwyn, but only men showed on Caer Sous's ramparts. All around the fortress the shelters were being pulled down, as men prepared to march on the direct road to Branogenium. We had agreed not to use that road, but to go home the longer way through Caer Lud, so we would not be able to spy on Gorfethid's gathering host. Galahad looked grim as we rode eastwards, but I could not restrain my happiness, and once we had ridden clear of the busy encampments, I began to sing the Song of Rhiannon. "What is the matter with you?" Galahad asked irritably. "Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing!" I shouted in joy, and kicked back my heels so that the horse bolted down the green path, and I fell into a patch of nettles. "Nothing at all," I said, when Galahad brought the horse back to me. "Absolutely nothing." "You're mad, my friend." "You're right," I said, as I clambered awkwardly back onto the horse. I was indeed mad, but I was not going to tell Galahad the reason for my madness, so for a time I tried to behave soberly. "What do we tell Arthur?" I asked him. "Nothing about Guinevere," Galahad said firmly. "Besides, Gorfethid was lying. My God, how could he tell such lies about Guinevere?" "To provoke us, of course," I said. "But what do we tell Arthur about Mordred?" "The truth. Mordred is safe." "But if Gorfethid lied about Guinevere," I said, "why shouldn't he lie about Mordred? And Merlin didn't believe him." "We weren't sent for Merlin's answer," Galahad said. "We were sent to find the truth, my friend, and I say Merlin spoke it." "But Tudric," Galahad answered firmly, "will believe Gorfethid." "Which means Arthur has lost," I said bleakly. But I did not want to talk about defeat, so instead I asked Galahad what he had thought of Kynwyn. I was letting the madness take hold of me again, and I wanted to hear Galahad praise her and say she was the most beautiful creature between the seas and the mountains. But he simply shrugged. "A neat little thing," he said carelessly, "and pretty enough if you like those frail-looking girls." He paused, thinking. "Lancelot will like her," he went on. "You do know Arthur wants them to marry, though I don't suppose that will happen now. I suspect Gunlius's throne is safe, and Lancelot will have to look elsewhere for a wife." I said nothing more about Kynwyn. We rode back the way we had come, and reached Magnis on the second night, where, just as Galahad had predicted, Tudric put his faith in Gorfethid's promise, while Arthur preferred to believe Merlin. Gorfethid, I realized, had used us to separate Tudric and Arthur, and it seemed to me that Gorfethid had done well, for as we listened to the two men wrangle in Tudric's quarters, It was plain that the King of Gwent had no stomach for the coming war. Galahad and I left the two men arguing, while we walked on Magnus's ramparts, that were formed by a great earthen wall flanked by a flooded ditch, and topped with a stout palisade. "Tudrik will win the argument," Galahad told me bleakly. "He doesn't trust Arthur, you see." "Of course he does," I protested. Galahad shook his head. "He knows Arthur's an honest man," he allowed. "But Arthur's also an adventurer. He's landless. Have you ever thought of that? He defends a reputation, not property. He holds his rank because of Mordred's age, not through his own birth. For Arthur to succeed, he must be bolder than other men. But Tudrik doesn't want boldness right now. He wants security. He'll accept Gorfithid's offer." He was silent for a while. "Maybe our fate is to be wandering warriors," he continued gloomily, "deprived of land and always being driven back towards the western sea by new enemies." I shivered and drew my cloak tighter. The night was clouding over and bringing a chill promise of rain on the western wind. "You're saying Tudrik will desert us?" "He already has," Galahad said bluntly. "His only problem now is getting rid of Arthur gracefully. Tudrik has too much to lose, and he won't take risks anymore. But Arthur has nothing to lose, except his hopes." "You two!" A loud voice called us from behind, and we turned to see Kiluk hurrying along the ramparts. "Arthur wants you." "For what?" Galahad asked. "What do you think, Lord Prince? He's lacking for throwboard players." Kiluk grinned. "These bastards may not have the belly for a fight." He gestured towards the fort that was thronged with Tudrik's neatly uniformed men. "But we have. I suspect we're going to attack all on our own." He saw our surprise and laughed. "You heard Lord Agricola the other night. 200 men can hold Lugvale against an army." "Well, we've got 200 spearmen, and Gorfithid possesses an army. So why do we need anyone from Gwent? Time to feed the ravens!" The first rain fell, hissing in the smithy fires, and it seemed we were going to war. I sometimes think that was Arthur's bravest decision. God knows he took other decisions in circumstances just as desperate. But never was Arthur weaker than on that rainy night in Magnus, where Tudrik was drawing up patient orders that would withdraw his forward men back to the Roman walls in preparation for a truce between Gwent and the enemy. Arthur gathered 5 of us in a soldier's house close to those walls. The rain seethed on the roof, while under the thatch a log fire smoked to light us with a lurid glare. Sagramor, Arthur's most trusted commander, sat beside Morfans on the hut's small bench. Kiluk, Galahad and I squatted on the floor, while Arthur talked. Prince Murig, Arthur allowed, had spoken an uncomfortable truth, for the war was indeed of his own making. If he had not spurned Cynwyn, there would be no enmity between Powys and Dumnonia. Gwent was involved by being Powys's most ancient enemy, and Dumnonia's traditional friend. But it was not in Gwent's interest to continue the war. "If I had not come to Britain," Arthur said, "then King Tudrik would not be foreseeing the rape of his land. This is my war, and just as I began it, so I must end it." He paused. He was a man to whom emotion came easily, and he was at that moment overcome with feeling. "I am going to Lugvale tomorrow," he finally spoke, and for a dreadful second I thought he meant to give himself up to Gorfithid's awful revenge. But then Arthur offered us his open, generous smile. "And I would like it if you came with me, but I have no right to demand it." There was silence in the room. I suppose we were all thinking that the fight in the Vale had seemed a risky prospect when the combined armies of Gwent and Dumnonia were to be employed. But how were we to win with only Dumnonia's men? "You have a right to demand that we come," Kiluk broke the silence, "for we took oaths to serve you.